As each new immigrant group got more of a foothold in America, they filled more theater seats, and what they saw of themselves on stage changed for the better. Vaudevillians knew you don't get nasty about the Irish in a theater full of Irish. But with African Americans segregated in the balcony, or excluded entirely from the audience, there was no such thing in mainstream vaudeville as a theater full of them. And it was that way for almost a century.
Hey, Skinny! The minstrel show's coming to town!
Beginning in the 1840s, the minstrel show was America's first entertainment craze.
It started with northern white performers who observed blacks or Negroes or slaves at that point, really entertaining themselves.
Say, I have an idea.
Yes.
You be around here about a half hour before the show.
You mean you're gonna let me watch up close?
Jim Crow, you'll practically be right on the stage.
Woo! Wheel about and turn about, change and...
Wheel about and turn about and do just so. Every time I wheel about, I jump Jim Crow.
Give me back my clothes, please.
What they did was to imitate some of the actions they saw, some of the songs that they saw these slaves singing, and to put on grease paint or blackface.
Blacks had little power to protest their characterizations, although many tried. Whites could parody them, but they could parody no one but themselves. Eventually, African Americans formed their own minstrel companies, billing themselves as real Negro delineators. Whites couldn't compete with their authenticity and often their talent, so they turned their own minstrel shows into vaudeville. But blackface characterizations were still an essential part of the act.
That's what the minstrels are here for, so stand up and cheer for those grand old minstrels there.
At the same time, African Americans were being lynched by the hundreds and shunned by mainstream society. They were the subjects of the most popular music of the time, so-called coon songs, that, like minstrel shows, depicted black life as free, careless, and non-threatening to anyone. Whites were led to believe that this young man's sole desire was to sing and dance for them.
If I saw a blackface performer at that time, I guess I was in my early teens on vaudeville. I didn't think anything of it because it was the time that I was living. It was the late 20s. I can look back now. I dislike having to say this, but I realize my mother and father were bigots. But I think everybody in Chicago were bigots.
Sitting by the river on a summer evening, listening to the darkest hum.
White vaudevillians maintained that white fantasy begun during minstrel times, that separate but equal was okay with Mammy, and that blacks were simple, happy creatures who loved to entertain and had lots of time to do it, with just a little cotton picking here and there between fish fries and steamboat arrivals.
Listening to the steamboat blow.
The myth lasted a very long time, as Topsy and Eva, vaudeville's Duncan sisters, were still working it in 1960. The Duncans were the last minstrels. Real African Americans were forced to go along with the myth by wearing ridiculous or stereotyped clothing on stage, and only playing versions of Sambo or Zip Coon.
Because Sambo was the willing retainer. He was that slave who who would sing songs like Carry Me Back to Old Virginia. On the other hand, Zip Coon then becomes an aggressive black man who's still ignorant, but is pretentious.
Black performers almost always had to be in a racial context.
I don't know why I feel this way.
Eunice Wilson sings a fine number that has nothing to do with fruits and vegetables. So why does she have to do it in front of giant watermelons?
Now I can go on I must have you. Now the day will come, say, when you give in. I won't give up because I'm sure to win, because I don't know why I feel this way.
I remember once I had added a wonderful song called Shoeshine Boy to my repertoire. And it was a perfect song for a kid of 12, 13 to sing. And I sang this song. I had an arrangement of it with an orchestra and so forth. And I was booked into the Oriental Theater in Chicago. And there was a wonderful theater with a wonderful line of chorus girls and a great choreographer and producer and so forth. And when she heard about the colored boy coming to work at the theater, her mind began to click, apparently. And when I got there, she had a whole big production number about Shoeshine Boy. And of course, I was in it. And I had to give up my nice arrangement and then perform in her production, which included running up and down the chorus girls in front of them with a shoeshine cloth and shining their shoes. And my nice white tail suit had been tossed aside, and I was wearing some kind of stylized version of tatters and rags. That was my final week in vaudeville.
Now I remember as a kid, you know, hold on there now. Now Sapphire done told me that you owes me a nickel. And I used to go like, why do you talk like, to my mother, why do you talk like that?
The white performers who did minstrelsy did not really do black comedy at all. I mean, the jokes had nothing to do with blacks whatsoever. They were basically gags that were taken, and they were of show business origin. They were riddles and gags taken from the northern stage. When blacks came in, you had the emergence of an authentic form of black entertainment, although they still veiled it with the stereotypes that had been set up by the white performers.
The definition for acting is to do. All of this is an act.
Leonard Reed is an African-American who played in both all-white and all-black vaudeville.
I told you why they put on cork. Not to be black, but to get the expressions from the face. When you put on cork and white lips, you can move your lips around and everybody can see them moving around, and that's a laugh. And I think anything that you can do to get a laugh should be in show business. Show business is show business.
And I think that burnt cork for a lot of those vaudevillians was a mask so that when they came off stage, they could disappear into the crowd and nobody would know who they were.
Almost all the black comedians before 1950 wore blackface, even for black audiences. In the beginning, they had to.
Yeah, let me tell you about that bull of my father's. You see, right,
but some wanted to, like the great comedian Dewey Pigmeat Markham.
5 o'clock. And that bull is so fast and so smart, every afternoon about 5 o'clock, he goes way up to the far end of that pasture and race that train 5.5 miles.
Oh, yeah?
Would you believe it? That bull beat that train by 1/2 mile.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Some bull.
I know it's some bull.
And when Pigmeat took off his cork, he lost the edge that he had in laughter. I said, Pigmeat, what's happening? I said, the bit isn't going. He said, I don't know, I can't express myself anymore. He said, they made me take off the cork, and the cork was not to prove that I was black. They knew I was black. He said, Negro, that's what he said, but I just lost the edge. I can't feel like I felt when I had the cork on. And he was broken-hearted till the end. Pigmeat was broken-hearted till the end that he had to take off cork.
Pigmeat Markham was one of the last American performers to take off the mask. His fans were surprised to discover that his face was darker than his makeup. He had been lightening up, not blacking up, for 40 years. In mainstream vaudeville, only one black act was allowed per show, if that. But black performers did have a place to work and learn their craft, the Toba circuit.
The TOBA circuit consisted of a whole black theater circuit starting with Chicago Grand Theater to St. Louis to Kansas City to Tulsa to Oklahoma City. I get excited just thinking about, realize this has been 70 years ago since I did these dates.
On the Toba circuit, monologist Moms Mabley developed a routine that spanned 6 decades.
They fired me. Of course, when they fired me, when I lose my job, I lose my man. That is, since I got kind of old, Now, don't get me wrong, it ain't no disgrace to be old. But darn, if it ain't inconvenient, I can tell you that much about it. Knock me out, Luther. I love to dance. At least I used to love to dance.
Am I blue? Am I blue? Aching ears in these eyes telling you.
There was a lot for artists to be blue about working Toba, an acronym that stood for Theater Owners Booking Association. But for performers, it always meant tough on black asses. White owners, bad theaters, hardly any pay, and mostly in the South.
'Cause there was a time when I was his only one, but now I'm the sad and lonely one, Lordy.
They call up and say, Bailey, we got a nigger here says he's yours. His name is so-and-so, and Bailey would say, yeah, that's one of my niggers. He's at the theater. Let him alone. And they would let him go. You could not walk the street after dark in the South?
Pardon me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like it this time. What phone just rang? This one here? Didn't you hear it? Oh, no, I didn't. Hello? What's the matter with this guy? Yes? Mr. Reed's office. Mr. Reed? Yes, for you. Must be for me. Got to make him think you're big time. Yeah. Always have a secretary. He's big. Hello? Yes, this is Reed.
Leonard Reed and Willie Bryant became stars at the Apollo in New York, like the Toba theaters, a place where African-American performers could work before their peers to find their own voices in their own communities. But to become national stars, they had to deal with the white world, and that was really easy.
As a young black performer, I was not allowed to stay in many of the hotels where I worked. I think that's, to people who are young today, unimaginable, but it's quite true.
We never saw them at the same hotel we stayed at, and they tried to keep this from the kids. But I knew as a kid that the black people and the ethnic people had to go miles out of the way to get to a boarding house or get to a place that would serve them food.
If it was a white, bill, and no white audiences, white people on the stage and everything, they would want us to stay in a black hotel, But, and that's another thing where my brother and I, we sort of tried to clip that down too, and go stay in the hotels where the other people stayed.
Hey, that's Mommy. Yeah? Yeah, man. Well, all right there. Put my trust in good for dust. 'Cause you know someday it may bring you a seven.
Through talent, courage, and a refusal to be stereotyped, some performers overcame, like the Nicholas brothers.
Yeah!
Naturally, we're going to say no if they ask us to blackface and put on tramp thing. No, they never did ask us that. I mean, in all the years that we've been in show business, I think they thought we'd be out of character to do that because they always see us in the tuxedos and the tails with class and grace and all that.
Maybe that's why we never got too many parts in movies, you know, because we wouldn't do the mammy scene, you know, and stuff like that. So.
Eubie Blake always wore a dinner jacket on stage. He was proud of his music and insisted on showing that pride. Of all the vaudeville performers who overcame huge obstacles to achieve success and dignity, the first, the greatest, was Bert Williams. He started out a minstrel in 1893 and by 1910 was the most respected comedian on the American stage.
Bert Williams' Sambo character, although he himself said it was the same shuffling nigger that was being portrayed by other people, was done with such subtlety that he came across as a human being.
Bert Williams mesmerized the audience. As a matter of fact, one of the bits that he did in the 1919 Follies was a shoe store, and he describes how the shoes are too tight. And my dad was a straight man. He says, well, what size do you wear? He says, well, I wear 10s, but 11s feel so good, I wear 12s.
He just seemed to relax, and everyone knew there was going to be a punchline, but he waited and waited, and he milked it for all it was worth. And then he would say the punchline very calmly. And his sense of timing was remarkable.
Sat on his knees, as a matter of fact, when I was about 5 years old. He was a very nice, kindly gentleman. And all business.
In the 1916 film, The Natural Born Gambler, Bert Williams recreated one of his most famous sketches, a mime poker game performed alone. Bert Williams was, as Robert Townsend says, the Jackie Robinson of show business. Not only the first black American to star with an otherwise white cast on Broadway, but the first black American in our history to be admired and respected by people of all races. He died in 1922, only 46 years old. He worked himself to death, trying to prove something he had already proved decades before, many times over.
What am I proudest of? I'm proudest of that the brother and I, or me, got the opportunity to do what we wanted to do on stage. And nothing took that away from us, you know. We did it all.